Nolan and Wyatt's dad had a secret friendship that we weren't even in.
Yeah, they were like best friends.
We would go over to Wyatt's house, and Nolan, we would all be in the backyard, whatever, doing something, and Nolan would be inside on the couch with Wyatt's dad, and they would just be cutting it up all night.
Yeah,
I bet you $1,000,000 if it was 5 black boys and 1 white boy on the boat. By now, there would have been an arrest, there would have been a warrant, there would have been a seizure, but because America doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter, they trying to act offended because we want to ask the question, what happened to our brother? And when we ask the question, what happened? The response is we're still gathering information. We're waiting on toxicology, waiting on the grand jury. Am I my brother's keeper? That's the question underneath every delayed subpoena, every sealed file, every complaint filed against a grieving mother's nursing license. Instead of asking whoever left her son on the island, the institutional Mississippi still muttering Kane's excuse, it's not my problem. I wanted to come to Mississippi today from Georgia to let the system and to let the establishment know, let that be the last time you try to intimidate a black mother. She's got every right to fight for her son, to stand for her son, to question her son, and you better not mess with her nurse's license. Leave that black woman alone.
Well, we actually have proof that Grandpa Jerry was actually on Horns Island as well, which makes sense why he was able to call the captain, because he physically was watching. And now who was Wyatt on the phone with? Well, we know he was on the phone with Cito Call, but let me show you Grandpa Jerry.
White-haired old man. Look, I just want you.
And she also gave us a little specialty on Wyatt. And now I thank her for that treat, because we all been asking the same question. Where is Wyatt? Why haven't we heard from Wyatt? Where are his boats that one we know was missing from the MDMR report? We just have no information, no nothing on him. He is seemingly in the dark, like he's just disappeared somewhere. So where is he? And why haven't we heard from him?
Wait, text messages were just released between Nolan's mom and Warren that can answer a lot of questions. And I need you to, I'm gonna go through these text messages one by one. You tell me, does it look like somebody like Warren is trying to hide something, or does it look like he's being a true friend? Now, first of all, I thought that Nolan's dad showed up unannounced as the way, Warren and them told the story. Here's a text message, July 5th, 2 in the morning. Nolan's dad is out the house to pick up the key. Remember, he was trying to get the key from Jax. He said Jax couldn't find it, or it was taking forever. Then somebody else found it, and he didn't trust Jax after that. So then here's the next one. That day in the afternoon, hey Warren, what kind of sunglasses did Nolan wear? I'm pretty sure Ray-Bans, Mrs. Christine. This is Warren. Then Warren says, hey, Mrs. Christine, just wanted to check in. We went out this morning to look, and I've been on and off the phone with Jackson County Sheriff's Office today. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. She says, thank you. Warren says, we are all praying for your family. We appreciate it. Then it gets deeper. Now, right here, she asked Warren what boat he was on, or what boat Nolan was on. He says, Nolan went out on the 22 Triton offshore, and I was on the 24 tie line. I ain't heard much about the 24 tie line. On the way out, we were on separate boats. I went back on the Triton DMR, and the sheriff's office has all this information. Then if you look again, Monday, July 6th, 1:37 p.m., hey, Warren, can you collect any of Nolan's items left at Jack's house? So it was still items after her father went there? I don't know. Then here's Warren again. Good morning, Miss Christine. I just wanted to let you know that my family and I have been praying for you and your family. Nolan was one of my best friends since we were in 8th grade together. You and Mr. Elmore raised one of the best men I've ever met. I wish I could be there today. but I would never want to take the attention off of your family and Nolan and be a distraction. Thank you for being the best parents that Nolan could have had. This was the day of the funeral, that Monday. Now, these are cut off. I want to know the full message up here, because this is where it seemed like it got a little spicy. It appears Miss Christine, Nolan's mom, said exactly where you saw him last. I'm sorry I am asking you to repeat this. 3 p.m. West Tip, north side of Horn Island. Where did you guys launch for him? He sent the location, and I don't know why this is blurred out. We launched the boats yesterday evening and left from here this morning.
Let me throw another question at you. And look, I'm not wearing a prosecution or a defense hat. As you know, I'm a crime victim. I would say I'm coming at it from that angle. But I was very disturbed, Greg, when I got wind that there is no criminal investigation. It's been said over and over and over. Why not? We don't know how he died. For instance, if he did have water in his lungs, okay, maybe he did drown. But how did he get in the water? Did he fall in the water? Was somebody, wrestling with him in the water and they held him down? They went, oh, my stars, I killed him and left. Did he hit his head? I mean, there's a lot more to it than saying, oh, yeah, he drowned. How can someone state there is no criminal investigation? I understand a grand jury is about to be convened. That doesn't mean there's a crime, but doesn't that suggest to you a grand jury inside the Superior Courthouse, inside the district attorney's office, would suggest there is a criminal investigation?
Well, it would potentially lead someone to believe that, yeah, a criminal investigation was undergoing. When we look at how this has played out over the last 6 weeks, how law enforcement has acted, they haven't seized Nolan Wells' phone at this point. In a criminal investigation, law enforcement's going to tools to get this information.
Are you sitting
this could
down,
just be
Morris?
a drowning. I'm sitting down, and this could just be a drowning. And that's why they're looking at it that way, because nothing's told them it's
yet.
But everything's not a crime. It doesn't have to be investigated as a crime.
You're still talking. We've already established that. Here's the other, you know what? I'm going to let you think about what you just said.
Something I just can't get past is the CTO video that Officer Race Tatum shared. Now, something that's odd about it, which we know, is that there's no audio. Why not include audio? Also, why do none of them have life jackets on? Also, why would they not get off a sinking boat onto the boat that was taking the video of them sinking? Why is that video of them sinking? Wouldn't there be a longer part to that video? Also, Cito, Wyatt, we're on the phone together, right, with Vicky. At the same time, Jerry, the grandpa, was on a call with Captain Seth Ward. Why would Jerry be on the call? Why would they cancel the Cito call? Now, we know that Fart Jr. gave them a tow in, but if I'm the grandfather, wouldn't I rather have Cito give them the tow in than somebody with just like a piece of string? Jerry is on the call with Seth Ward saying no tow is needed. So is it possible that this is an alibi phone call? Like, Captain Seth never said the tow isn't needed because they have help. It just was canceled. Why would you cancel that tow? And can you imagine Wyatt being like, no, we're good. We're going to have one of our buddies tow us in. The grandfather would have insisted that Cito come and tow them. Why did the grandfather cancel Cito? Jerry only called the captain to say they don't need a tow, cancel it. It sounds like more like a personal call, cancel it, because one of the friends' alleged drunk buddies is going to tow him in on a piece of dental floss. Does that make sense to you at all? And again, if they're on a sinking boat, why is there like 7 of them on the boat posing? You would think they would all get off the boat, right? Strap the boat up to the boat that wasn't sinking and then make the call. Again, there's no metadata on the Cito video that Officer Race Tatum put out, and that TMZ, nobody has confirmed the metadata. So as for us, and in my opinion, that video looks staged. What do you guys think?
just when I thought things could not get worse, this case is just taking all types of turns. Like, it's crazy. Now that we done found out that the DA husband is an FBI agent, like, we can't even get help from the FBI. But y'all, hear me out. Whatever's in Nolan's phone, the DA know what's inside the phone. They've been talking to the granddaddy. They've been talking to the parents, the judge. Man, these people are connected. You got governors. You got people that own Horn Island, CETO, public relations. You got doctors, anesthesiologists. Like, these people, this is bad. This is really bad. In GTA, these people could run a whole organ trafficking if they wanted to. This is crazy. This is beyond crazy. They know what's in the phone. They already been in contact with the kids. They know what happened. Everybody just got to stick to the story. That's why they want to all of a sudden demand the phone, because they want to delete what's in the phone that will prove what actually happened to him.
And Nancy Grace just said on her show that there are reports that Nolan Xavier Wells did not have any boogshug in his system. Now, she did say these are uncorroborated reports, but there are reports out there, and we are waiting on the toxicology official report from the state's autopsy. But it seems that if this ends up being true, which I believe with everything in my heart, that a D1 college athlete going off to play football the week after 4th of July weekend is not going to be putting substances like that or any other substance like that in his body because he knows that he could get tested and he's a committed athlete, and that is not something that they do. Now, if this comes out, I have a challenge to you, Officer Race Batum Tatum. Will you apologize to the world? Because you're the one who said, oh, I've got a good friend, a little birdie, who told me that there was a guy giving out copious amounts of boogshug on the island and that Nolan was taking the boogshug, the white powder, to his nose. Will you apologize, Tatum? Because you're always telling me, oh, you're going to have to apologize. You're going to have to apologize.
A Nolan Wells phone evidence torpedo.
2 confirmed witnesses that saw Nolan Wells on the island around p.m. The Triton, as you said, left around 4:30.
What witnesses? Where? Who, what, where, why, and when? Right. The Nolan Wells investigation into the death of a shining star, Nolan Wells, has an altercation witness emerged. A witness that claims she saw an altercation at Horn Island.
Finally heard from the District Attorney of Jackson County, Mississippi. So District Attorney Mickelrath finally sends out an actual press release letter dated for August 18th. And it's very long-winded. I'm going to read it to you guys, but I'm going to give you a quick little synopsis of what it states. It mainly says, I cannot send letters out like the legal teams can do. I cannot put information out there to the public like the other legal teams have to do. There's certain laws that I have to abide by. There's certain ethics and codes I have to abide by. Please let this investigation be thorough and please let us do what we need to do. I am going to be giving this to the grand jury and let the grand jury make the decision on this case. That's essentially what it says, but I'm going to read it to you guys anyways. As you can see, here is the press release statement from District Attorney Angel Myers Mickelrath to the people of Jackson County, Mississippi. And it states, as District Attorney, I do not have the same freedom to share information publicly that private individuals may have. A little bigger there. For example, I do not have the freedom to release letters I've sent in the investigation, discuss witness cooperation, or testing of the evidence. I do not have the freedom to identify what information is fact over another, nor do I control the information released by private individuals who are not part of the investigative team. I cannot control whether private individuals release letters they have sent me, just as I cannot prevent them from releasing letters that I've sent them. What it seems like she's saying here is that I can't control what you guys are hearing and seeing and reading from Nolan Wells' legal team. She also said I cannot control which facts or bits of information are shared or whether information is being shared in context, twisted, or misconstrued. Public commentary does not make the speaker transparent, just like exercising restraint consistent with the laws does not make a person or a process corrupt. The fact that something is said does not necessarily mean it's true. Next, prosecutors are held to the highest level of ethical standards of the law, as it should be. People deserve no less. I understand that a void is perceived when some are speaking publicly about a matter while others do not. I would be stepping outside of the bounds of law if I were to fill that void and share information publicly. With all the public pressure being placed on my office, filling the void would not only serve to get pressure off of me. Nolan deserves better. There is no pressure that can be placed on me and no force that is greater than the weight of the oath I took and my responsibility to the people that I have. My obligation and commitment is to present to the grand jury with all the evidence collected in this case in order for them to reach a decision, and I am obliged to do so in keeping the law and the rules of the court. Now, the bottom piece here I think is really, really important. On July 23rd, 2026, I released a recorded statement explaining the process and what the people of Jackson County elected me to do in this matter. There is nothing more to be shared at this time. I caution the public about assigning trustworthy things and to read what they read and see online. I also ask, rather than individuals demanding that I step outside the grounds, to also allow me to do my job and do what I was elected to do. At the bottom, she says, I stand firmly on the rule of the law and ethical obligation. This is what the people of Jackson County have elected me to do, and I will present to the grand jury a thorough, complete investigation. To me, it looks like McIlrath is not going to adhere to a joint investigation, but she's also alluding to the fact that maybe some of the information that we're being told by the Wells family attorney and the civil rights attorney, Ben Crump, maybe not all of it is accurate. Maybe not all of it is valid. Maybe not all of it is credible. It does make the wheels turn a little bit. It makes the hamster wheel go a little bit in the squash. What do you guys think?
That looks pretty long. You know, tritons are built to hold massive amount of fish. As you can see in this picture of the triton, that's his leg compared to the door, y'all. Just in this area alone, that is deep enough and long enough to place a body.
Wouldn't you think that you would have seen on the bottom of on the floor or something?
Look at their fucking body language.
Or scrambling around, or everybody in a small space on the boat looking at him.
Morgan tenses up and starts shaking his leg, and you can see his face, and he immediately looks over.
Wouldn't you think that you would have seen on the bottom of on the floor or something? Or scrambling around, or everybody in a small space on the boat looking at him.
Warren is staring.
Warren, you breathing pretty hard there, Bob.
Wouldn't you think that you would have seen on the bottom on the floor or something? Or scrambling around, or everybody in a small space on the boat looking at him.
In my last video, I show you that there's 2 doors up under here. As you can see up under Wyatt's brother. Specifically some up to 6.5 feet long. Nolan Wells was 6'1". I find it fucking creepy that you would say something like that, Jax. I mean, you said it. Another photo of the triton. I did notice the sticker's different. This one is green, but it could be changed every so often. Oh yeah, look at this. Wyatt's brother Ike has a fishing account. He named it the Fish Killing Machine, but better yet, he states that I have a lot of connections on the Gulf Coast from Alabama to Louisiana. So I guess that allegedly makes sense as to why Wyatt would call Cito, because y'all were brothers, and brothers always share connections. Allegedly, right?
And little birdies are saying, it's not been completely verified, but that I'm hearing that somebody who has an inside source is saying the DA's office in Mississippi is now looking at the Nolan Wells case as a criminal investigation and no longer an accidental drowning. Now, we can only pray that this is true. Obviously, we can't celebrate. We can't get excited at all because I have not seen Ben Crump announce this. It is not being reported by any other major media sources, but there are rumblings. And so we have to take rumblings. We have to take any little bits we can take. Remember, no stone unturned. We must look in every single direction. We must continue to keep the pressure on because they want us to forget about Nolan. And little do they know that will never happen. His name will be said for generations to come, and I will be part of making sure.
Nolan Wells, the blackout in Gary, Indiana, public lynchings of Black people. What do those 3 things have in common? All of these were stories that the mainstream news media did not report until we started making them trend on social media. And by we, I mean Black folks. I'm talking about us. Sorry if you're not tribe. I'd be jealous if I were you, but that's not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation is this. We know that the algorithms are trash. We know that the algorithm is built against us and people who talk about what we talk about. We know that these algorithms and these platforms are controlled by billionaires who want to control us. And we have more power than we think. So when we decide to get in unison, be one band, one sound, we can actually dictate the terms of the news instead of the news dictating the terms to us. Never ever forget your power and keep on saying the name.
A phone vibrated somewhere aboard a boat moving back toward the Mississippi shoreline. The phone belonged to an 18-year-old, but the teenager himself was nowhere on board. No one explained why. And no one seemed prepared to answer the question that followed. That one detail would become one of the most haunting elements of the entire case. Nolan Wells had gone out on a boat with people he trusted. The destination was a remote island along the Mississippi Gulf Coast during a 4th of July weekend that was supposed to be ordinary. Instead, somewhere between the island and the return journey, Nolan disappeared. There was no confirmed goodbye, no clear distress call from Nolan himself, and no explanation that has resolved the questions surrounding his final hours. 2 days later, his body was recovered. Yet even after that discovery, one of the most basic questions remained unanswered. What exactly happened to him? His official cause of death remained undetermined. For his family, the investigation did not end with the recovery of Nolan's body. It became the beginning of a much more painful search, one involving phone records, boat movements, witness accounts, and a timeline they say still contains troubling gaps. Every new piece of information raised another question. Every answer seemed to reveal another unknown. His name was Nolan Wells. He was only 18 years old. He had a life ahead of him, and the circumstances surround every man on the wall will say there may be no sign. Before going deeper into the timeline, there is something important to understand about this story. This documentary examines the death of a young man under circumstances that have not been fully explained. It includes discussion of an unresolved death, disputed or incomplete investigative details, and a family seeking answers about what happened during Nolan's final hours. Some of the information comes from official records and public statements. Other details involve witness accounts, reported evidence, or questions that remain under investigation. The purpose is not to declare what cannot yet be proven. It is to follow the timeline carefully and examine the details that continue to leave one central question hanging over the case. What happened to Nolan Wells before that boat finally returned to shore? If you are just finding this case, understand why the story has continued to attract attention. Nolan Wells' death is not simply a headline about an 18-year-old who never made it home. It is a case built around a timeline that still contains unanswered questions, and around a family searching for clarity about what happened during Nolan's final hours. That means every detail matters. And to understand the case, we have to start with the place where the story unfolded. Horn Island can look almost untouched. From the mainland, it is difficult to imagine the island becoming the setting for a tragedy. But its isolation is exactly what makes the events of July 4, 2026 so important. The island lies roughly 5 miles off Mississippi's Gulf Coast, south of Ocean Springs, stretching for approximately 11 miles through the Gulf of Mexico. It is federally protected wilderness. There are no permanent residents, no regular staff, no drinking water infrastructure, no medical facility, and across much of the island, reliable phone service is unavailable. Getting there means traveling by boat. Leaving means doing the same. Once someone is on Horn Island, the distance from the mainland becomes more than geography. If something goes wrong, immediate help is not necessarily close by. And on Independence Day 2026, hundreds of people had made that journey. Estimates place the holiday crowd somewhere between 200 and 300 people. Many were young, and many had connections to the Ocean Springs area. For people familiar with the Mississippi Gulf Coast, spending the 4th of July on Horn Island was not unusual. Boats gathered offshore, groups filled sections of the beach, friends spent the holiday together in the middle of the Gulf. But the farther everyone moved from the mainland, the farther they also moved from immediate oversight. Nolan Wells was one of those young people who traveled to the island that day. He had gone with friends, several of whom he had known for years. Among them was Warren Hudson, described as a close friend dating back to 8th grade. Jack Spatello, Morgan Seymour, Trace's Tin Shepherd, and Javon Williams were also part of the group. These were not strangers brought together for a single afternoon. They were young men who had grown up around one another and, according to the public accounts surrounding the case, had established relationships built over years. But one aspect of the group later became an important part of the broader public discussion. Nolan was the only black member of the group. The others were white. That fact by itself does not establish what happened to Nolan. But as questions about his death intensified, his race became part of the wider conversation surrounding the investigation, public reaction, and the demand for answers. And there was another detail that would become critical when investigators began reconstructing the day. The group had not traveled to Horn Island on a single boat. There were 2 separate vessels. And that is where the timeline begins to become much more complicated. Warren Hudson was aboard a 24-foot tide line. Nolan traveled separately aboard a 22-foot Triton offshore boat. The 2 vessels left on their own, but both ultimately reached Horn Island. For several hours, there was nothing publicly known to suggest that the day would end in tragedy. The island was filled with the familiar sounds of a 4th of July gathering along the Gulf Coast. boats positioned offshore, music carrying across the beach, and groups of people spending the holiday together far from the mainland. For a while, it appeared to be an ordinary celebration. Then the accounts of what happened during the afternoon began to separate. According to an internal document obtained by ABC News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, witnesses on Horn Island reported seeing Nolan consume what they described as a significant amount of alcohol during the gathering. The document was dated July 5th, one day after Nolan was reported missing, and had been circulated among search personnel. That distinction is important. This was not presented as a final investigative conclusion. It was an internal communication documenting information that had been provided to authorities early in the search. In other words, investigators were already being told something about Nolan's condition on the island. But that was not the only detail recorded in the document. Witnesses also reportedly told investigators that Nolan had been seen with a woman while on Horn Island. Her name would later become public as Katie McCornack. At that point, however, her identity was not yet widely known, and that seemingly simple detail, a young man seen with a woman during a crowded holiday gathering, would eventually become another piece of the timeline investigators had to examine. Because the question was no longer simply where Nolan had been, it was what happened after those final confirmed moments on the island. And as investigators began reconstructing the afternoon minute by minute, the two boats, the people aboard them, and the movements that followed would become increasingly important.